"I have nothing to cover myself," said the Apache woman behind the water. The morning air was cool, but the sun was beginning to climb, spreading a golden glow across the hills where the small Apache village rested. Birds chirped quietly in the trees, and the gentle murmur of a nearby stream was the only sound that seemed constant in a world that had lately become uncertain and harsh. Nayeli, a young Apache woman, stepped lightly through the tall grasses, her bare feet brushing against the dew-soaked earth. Each step reminded her of the many responsibilities she carried, even though she was only 18. She was slender, yet strong in ways many could not see. Her dark hair was braided tightly against her scalp, and her eyes held a mixture of determination and quiet worry. Nayeli's family had once been proud owners of a modest stretch of land where they grew crops and raised a few animals. But in recent years, that life had been torn from them. New settlers had arrived, and her family had been forced to leave the land they loved, moving into a smaller, crowded village where resources were scarce. Every day felt like a struggle. Food was limited, water was precious, and the security they once knew seemed like a distant memory. Nayeli's father, once a strong and jovial man, had grown quiet and tired. Her mother worked tirelessly, stitching, cooking, and teaching the younger children how to help without complaining, but even she had moments when the weight of life pressed heavily upon her. In this world, Nayeli felt both the fear of losing more and the responsibility to protect what little remained. This morning, Nayeli had risen before dawn, as she always did. She had planned to collect water from the stream at the edge of the village, a task that required both strength and caution. The stream was hidden among rocks and tall reeds, but she had learned that it was safest to go there alone early in the morning before anyone else arrived. As she walked, she carried an empty clay jar carefully balanced on her hip. Her heart was steady, but there was an underlying tension in her chest, a silent reminder of the challenges that awaited her. When Nayeli reached the stream, she knelt at the edge, dipping her hands into the cool, clear water. The sensation was refreshing, but also humbling. The reflection of the sky shimmered in the surface, and for a moment she allowed herself to breathe freely. But as she adjusted her position, she felt the familiar discomfort of her tattered clothing brushing against her skin. The fabric, once sturdy and protective, had worn thin after months of use, patched hastily with whatever scraps were available. She glanced down and a sudden pang of worry struck her. The cloth barely covered her properly. The wind shifted slightly and she shivered, not from cold but from the feeling of exposure. "I have nothing to cover myself," she whispered softly, almost to herself. The words felt heavy in her mouth, carrying more than the literal meaning. It was not just her body that felt exposed, but her life, her circumstances, and the vulnerability that came with them. She could not hide from the challenges she faced, and at that moment they seemed to crowd around her all at once. The phrase echoed in her mind, repeating like a quiet drumbeat. It was a truth she had lived for weeks, months, and perhaps even years. Life had stripped away much, and she often felt unprepared, unprotected, and small against the weight of the world. Nayeli's eyes wandered to the other side of the stream, where the rocks were smooth and the reeds swayed in the breeze. She thought of her siblings, sleeping in the small hut she shared with them. How could she show her face to them if she could not even protect herself? She could not let them see her fear or her uncertainty. The thought made her heart ache, but it also gave her a spark of determination. She had to find a way, she had to be strong. Nayeli rose carefully, keeping the jar steady, and glanced around to make sure she was alone. No one was nearby, and the early sun cast long shadows across the stream, giving her some privacy. For now, she could breathe, and for now, she could gather her strength. As she bent down to fill the jar, she noticed the small wildflowers growing along the bank. Their colors, bright yellows, soft purples, and delicate whites, seemed almost impossible in a world so harsh. Nayeli reached out, brushing a fingertip over a soft petal. The simple beauty made her heart lift slightly. Life, despite its difficulties, still held moments of grace. Even in scarcity, there were things to notice, small gifts that reminded her of the strength within her and the world around her. The water flowed steadily in the stream, clear and life-giving, and she thought of her mother's words. Even when the world feels cruel, there is always something to hold on to. Find it and let it give you courage. Naomi paused for a moment, letting the sound of the water fill her ears. She closed her eyes, imagining the stream not just as a source of water, but as a source of calm and clarity. In those few moments, she allowed herself to feel her own strength, even if it was quiet and small. She had survived challenges before. She had cared for her siblings, gathered food, and learned to navigate a world that often seemed against her. And though her clothing was torn, though her body felt exposed, her spirit was still intact. After filling the jar carefully, Naomi lifted it and balanced it on her hip. She took a slow, deep breath and looked at the path back to the village. She knew the journey would be challenging. The terrain was uneven and the jar was heavy. She would have to navigate it carefully to avoid spilling the precious water she had collected. But she was ready. She had done this countless times before, and each step, though tiring, was a testament to her resilience. She began walking, her eyes focused, her heart steady, but always aware of the vulnerability that lingered beneath the surface. Along the path, she thought about her family again. Her younger brother, who loved to run and laugh even in hard times. Her little sister, who followed Naomi like a shadow, trusting her completely. They depended on her, and that thought alone was enough to steel her courage. Naomi's own fears and insecurities mattered less when she remembered the ones she protected. And in that way, she found a quiet bravery, the kind that is forged not in comfort, but in necessity. The sun climbed higher, warming the land, and Naomi continued her journey. Though she had said the words softly to herself, "I have nothing to cover myself," they no longer carried only despair. They were a reminder of the challenges she faced, yes, but also of the courage she carried. Every step forward, every careful movement, every thought of her family and the stream that had given her solace strengthened her. Naomi was small and the world was vast, but she was not powerless. In the quiet of that morning, with the jar of water balanced carefully and the soft breeze on her skin, she realized that strength was not always loud or visible. Sometimes it was quiet, persistent, and unwavering, growing within a person like the roots of the trees around her. By the time Naomi reached the edge of the village, the sun was fully risen. Children were beginning to stir, and a few villagers were starting their day. She kept the jar steady, careful not to draw attention to herself. She had carried the water, survived the morning, and managed her vulnerability with dignity. Even though the words she had spoken to herself still lingered in her mind, they now felt less like despair and more like a challenge she could face. Naomi smiled softly, a small expression but one filled with quiet pride. She had survived another morning, and in that survival, she found the strength to face the next challenge. After returning to the village with the jar of water balanced carefully on her hip, Naomi set it down near the small hearth of their humble home. Her younger siblings were just beginning to wake, rubbing their eyes and yawning, their hair messy from sleep. Her little brother, Tayan, looked at her with a mixture of curiosity and admiration. "Did you find enough water, Naomi?" he asked, his small voice still thick with sleep. Naomi nodded, giving him a gentle smile. "Yes, Tayan. There is enough for breakfast and to keep the house going today." Her words were calm, but inside, she still felt the lingering weight of her vulnerability from earlier at the stream. Despite her fatigue, Naomi knew she could not rest yet. The morning had only begun, and there were chores waiting for her, collecting firewood, helping her mother with food preparation, and attending to the younger children's needs. Life in the village was unrelenting. Every task demanded attention, every responsibility felt heavy, and every day seemed to carry the pressure of survival. Yet, Nayeli had learned over the years that it was not weakness to feel tired or afraid. It was weakness to give up. With this thought, she moved with purpose, her movements deliberate, her mind focused. Her mother, Marisol, was already at the hearth, stirring a pot of maize porridge over a small flame. The aroma filled the air, warm and comforting, but it could not entirely mask the tension that hung over their small home. Marisol looked up as Nayeli approached. "You returned early," she said softly, a hint of relief in her voice. She had noticed Nayeli's absence at dawn and had been quietly worried. Nayeli responded with a nod. "The stream was safe and the water is clean. We will have enough." The reassurance in her words was partly for her mother, but mostly for herself. Speaking these words aloud helped her feel capable, even when inside she still wrestled with uncertainty. As the children began to eat, Nayeli moved to her other tasks. She gathered small sticks and twigs for kindling, stacking them carefully near the hearth. She checked the storage of dried corn and beans, ensuring there was enough for the day. Each chore was simple on the surface, yet each carried the underlying responsibility of keeping her family alive. As she worked, she felt the familiar ache in her muscles, the reminder of physical labor and the strain of survival. But she also felt a quiet sense of pride. Every action she took, no matter how small, was a testament to her resilience and determination. Later, as the morning sun rose higher and the village grew busier, Nayeli stepped outside to gather more supplies. She needed materials to mend her torn clothing, which had left her feeling exposed at the stream earlier. As she walked, she noticed the patterns of life around her. Children ran barefoot through the dirt paths, laughing and shouting despite the hardships of their families. Women carried baskets of food or water, their movements practiced and efficient. Men returned from hunting or from tending to distant fields, their faces lined with fatigue, but their eyes reflecting quiet determination. Nayeli observed all of this, feeling both the weight of her own struggles and the strength found in the everyday lives of those around her. She moved toward a thicket near the edge of the village, where she often collected fibers and small scraps of cloth. The sun filtered through the trees, creating patches of light that danced on the ground. Nayeli knelt carefully, searching for anything that could help her mend her clothing. Her hands brushed over rough bark and soft leaves, gathering materials with a mixture of practicality and reverence. She thought about her mother's teachings, how to use what the land provided without waste, how to turn even the smallest scraps into something valuable. Each item she collected was more than just a tool. It was a symbol of her resourcefulness and her determination to protect herself and her family. As she worked, Nayeli's mind drifted back to the stream, to the moment when she had whispered, "I have nothing to cover myself." The words had carried a weight she had never fully understood until that moment. Vulnerability, she realized, was not simply a matter of clothing or physical exposure. It was a reflection of the deeper uncertainties of life, being unprepared, feeling powerless, and facing the unknown. She thought about how easily fear could take hold, how it could make her doubt her own abilities. And yet, she also recognized the strength she had shown, the courage it took to continue despite fear. It was a lesson she needed to remember, not just for herself but for those who looked up to her. Nayeli worked steadily, weaving fibers and stitching small scraps together with careful precision. Each movement required patience, each thread a test of her focus. The task was slow, but it was meditative in a way. It allowed her to channel her anxiety into action, transforming feelings of helplessness into tangible results. She imagined the moment when she would wear the repaired clothing, how it would make her feel more secure, more capable, more in control of her own life. The act of creating, of mending, was in itself empowering. It reminded her that even in a world filled with challenges, she had the ability to make a difference for herself and for those she loved. While Nayeli worked, a gentle voice interrupted her thoughts. Nayeli, called an elder woman from the village, approaching slowly with a kind, measured pace. She was known for her wisdom, having lived through many hardships herself. Nayeli looked up, a mix of surprise and relief on her face. The elder, whose name was Ayana, carried a small bundle of cloth. "I saw you at the stream," Ayana said softly, placing the bundle beside Nayeli. "You might find this useful." Nayeli's eyes widened, and she felt a warmth spread through her chest. The simple act of kindness, the recognition of her struggle, reminded her that she was not alone. Even in moments of vulnerability, there were those who offered support, quietly and without expectation. Nayeli accepted the cloth with gratitude, her hands trembling slightly. "Thank you," she said, her voice steady despite the flutter of emotion within her. Yana smiled, placing a reassuring hand on Nayeli's shoulder. "Strength is not only in facing the world alone," she said. "It is also in accepting help when it is offered." Nayeli nodded, absorbing the wisdom in the words. She realized that courage did not mean never feeling fear or never needing assistance. Courage could also mean reaching out, accepting guidance, and using the resources around her wisely. With the additional cloth, Nayeli worked more confidently, weaving it into her worn clothing to create coverage and comfort. She felt a growing sense of accomplishment as each patch was secured, each thread in place. The fabric no longer felt like a reminder of her vulnerability, but like armor, soft yet protective, practical yet imbued with her own effort and the care of others. In that quiet morning, surrounded by the gentle hum of village life, Nayeli discovered a new layer of resilience within herself. She understood that vulnerability and strength could coexist, and that facing challenges did not mean she had to face them alone. As the afternoon sun climbed higher, Nayeli paused to look at her reflection in a small pool of water nearby. She adjusted the cloth over her shoulders, feeling a sense of pride that went beyond physical appearance. The reflection staring back at her was one of quiet determination, of a young woman who had faced fear and taken steps to protect herself, who had accepted help and transformed it into empowerment. She smiled softly, a gesture of self-recognition and hope. The words she had whispered at the stream, "I have nothing to cover myself," no longer carried despair. They had become a reminder of what she had overcome and what she could still achieve. As the day continued, Nayeli helped her mother with preparing food, tending to the children, and organizing their small home. Her movements were calm, her heart steadier than it had been that morning. Every task she completed, every small responsibility she managed, reinforced her growing sense of confidence and capability. She knew that challenges would come again, as they always did, but she also knew that she had the tools, both practical and emotional, to face them. The lessons of courage, resourcefulness, and community support were becoming part of her daily life, shaping the way she approached each moment. By the time evening settled over the village, casting long shadows across the ground, Nayeli felt a quiet sense of fulfillment. She had faced vulnerability and uncertainty, yet she had emerged stronger and more self-assured. The stream, the morning chores, the patching of her clothing, and the guidance of Ayana had all contributed to a deeper understanding of herself. Nayeli realized that strength was not always measured by grand gestures or dramatic victories. Sometimes it was found in small, consistent acts of care, in the patience to mend what is broken, and in the courage to continue even when fear lingers. As night fell, Nayeli settled near the hearth, her family gathered around her. The flickering firelight cast warm patterns on the walls of their modest home. She watched her siblings, their faces peaceful in sleep, and felt a quiet gratitude for the life they shared. She thought of the morning at the stream, of the vulnerability that had seemed so overwhelming, and she smiled. She had faced it, learned from it, and turned it into something empowering. Nayeli knew that the days ahead would bring new challenges, but she also knew that she was ready to meet them with resilience, courage, and the quiet strength that comes from both self-reliance and community support. The next morning, Naomi woke to the soft sounds of the village. Stirring. Sunlight filtered through the gaps in the walls of their small hut, painting warm streaks across the earthen floor. The scent of maize porridge cooking over the hearth drifted into her room, reminding her that the day had begun, even though her mind still lingered on the events of the previous day. She had faced her vulnerability at the stream, gathered water, and patched her clothing with care. She had felt strength growing inside her, yet deep down she understood that life would continue to test her. After helping her younger siblings get ready, Naomi decided to step outside for a moment, wanting the quiet and calm of the early morning. The air was crisp, filled with the earthy smell of soil and dew, and the gentle hum of birdsong surrounded her. As she walked along the narrow dirt paths of the village, she noticed a few women collecting herbs and vegetables for the day's meals, their hands skilled from years of practice. Children played near the huts, their laughter a sharp contrast to the weight of responsibility that Naomi often felt. Even though the village life seemed simple, it was layered with care, work, and constant vigilance. Naomi took a deep breath, letting the familiar environment settle around her like a protective embrace. As she moved toward the small grove where she often collected fibers for her clothing repairs, she noticed a figure watching her quietly from the shade of a large tree. It was Ayanna, the elder woman who had helped her the day before. Her eyes were kind, and there was a gentle smile on her face that seemed to carry the weight of wisdom earned through years of experience. Naomi approached cautiously, a mixture of curiosity and respect in her heart. Ayanna spoke first, her voice soft but clear. "Naomi, you have been carrying a heavy burden. I have something to share with you today, lessons that may help you find strength even when you feel exposed or unsure." Naomi's heart lifted slightly. The elder's attention felt like a warm light in the midst of lingering shadows. She had always respected Ayanna, but now she realized that wisdom could provide more than guidance. It could inspire confidence and clarity. "I am listening," Naomi said, her voice steady, though her mind buzzed with anticipation. Ayanna nodded and began walking slowly, motioning for Naomi to follow. Together, they moved toward a small clearing near the edge of the village, where the sunlight filtered through the leaves in dappled patterns on the ground. As they walked, Ayanna spoke of the times she had faced her own hardships. She described how, when she was young, she had lost much of what she loved and had felt completely unprotected. Her clothing had been torn, her family's food scarce, and her heart heavy with worry. Yet she had learned that survival was more than endurance. It was also awareness, creativity, and the willingness to accept help when it came. Naomi listened carefully, absorbing every word. It was as if Ayanna's experiences mirrored her own fears, yet also illuminated a path forward. When they reached the clearing, Ayanna crouched and picked up a small, smooth stone from the ground. She held it out to Naomi. "This stone is ordinary," she said, "but see how strong it is. It has endured wind, rain, and the pressure of the earth above it, yet it has remained solid. You too can endure the challenges of life without being broken." Vulnerability does not mean weakness. It can be the very thing that teaches you to be stronger. Naomi stared at the stone, noticing its smooth edges and cool weight. She thought of herself, her torn clothing, her fears, and her responsibilities. Could she really be like this stone, solid, enduring, and unbroken, even when life seemed harsh? Ayanna's next lesson came through action. She showed Naomi how to gather plants and fibers from the surrounding land and transform them into materials that could strengthen and protect. Together, they wove small cords, experimented with different textures, and explored ways to use nature's resources wisely. Naomi realized that her vulnerability at the stream had been a lesson in observation, patience, and creativity. She had survived that moment not just by hiding, but by understanding what she had, what she could use, and how she could prepare for future challenges. The elder's guidance made these lessons clearer, showing Naeli that strength was as much about knowledge and adaptability as it was about courage. As the morning turned into midday, Naeli and Ayana sat together in the clearing, sharing a simple meal of corn and berries. The elder spoke gently, weaving stories of survival, patience, and resilience into their conversation. Naeli began to see patterns in her own life, the way she had faced fear quietly, the ways she had protected her siblings, and how she had learned to make do with what little she had. Every act, every choice, and every small effort carried meaning. She realized that strength was not always dramatic or visible. Often, it was quiet, steady, and persistent, growing with each day's actions. A sudden rustle in the nearby brush reminded Naeli that the world outside their village was unpredictable. She glanced around, alert but calm. Gianna smiled knowingly. "Life will always hold surprises," she said. "Sometimes danger, sometimes opportunity. The key is to be ready and aware. Learn from what you see, and remember that courage is not the absence of fear, but the decision to move forward despite it." Naeli felt the words settle into her heart. They echoed the lessons she had learned at the stream, the courage to gather water, to patch her clothing, and to continue despite feeling exposed. With the guidance of Ayana, Naeli began practicing more ways to protect herself and her family. She learned to identify plants that could serve multiple purposes, from clothing repair to food or medicine. She learned to weave more complex fibers into stronger, flexible pieces. Every skill she acquired added a layer of confidence, transforming her fear into practical strength. Naeli felt a growing sense of independence, not just in her ability to act, but in her understanding that knowledge and preparation could be as powerful as physical courage. As the afternoon sun began to dip, casting long shadows across the clearing, Naeli noticed a change within herself. She no longer felt as fragile or exposed as she had the previous day. The vulnerability she had experienced at the stream was still a memory, but it no longer carried the same weight of despair. Instead, it had become a reference point, a reminder of how far she could grow and what she could achieve with determination, patience, and guidance. Naeli realized that vulnerability was not something to hide from. It was a teacher, showing her where she needed to focus, learn, and adapt. Returning to the village, Naeli carried with her a small bundle of newly woven fibers and a heart strengthened by understanding. She noticed her siblings playing near the huts, their laughter filling the air with a lightness that contrasted the heavy responsibility she felt. She approached them and smiled, joining in their small games. The act of playing, even briefly, reminded her that life was not only about survival. It was also about moments of joy, connection, and love. Her younger brother and sister looked up at her with admiration, and she felt a quiet satisfaction. By learning to face her own fears and grow from them, she was also teaching them the value of resilience. Later, as night approached and the village settled into quiet routines, Naeli reflected on the day's experiences. She had learned practical skills, gained knowledge, and deepened her understanding of courage. Yet, most importantly, she had learned that accepting help did not diminish her strength. The guidance from Ayana, the simple act of sharing cloth and wisdom, had transformed her perspective. She realized that life's challenges were not obstacles meant to break her, but opportunities to learn, adapt, and grow stronger. That evening, Naeli sat by the hearth, weaving the fibers she had gathered into small pieces that could later reinforce her clothing or serve other practical purposes. Her mother glanced at her with a gentle nod, recognizing the focus and care in Naeli's movements. The younger children curled around her, tired from the day's activities but comforted by her presence. Naeli's heart felt lighter, not because life had become easier, but because she understood more clearly her own capabilities and the resources available to her. Strength, she realized, was a combination of courage, knowledge, creativity, and the willingness to accept support when needed. Before resting, Nayeli stepped outside one last time, gazing at the stars beginning to appear in the night sky. The world was vast, unpredictable, and sometimes frightening, but she no longer felt powerless. She had learned to face her fears, to gather knowledge and resources, and to transform vulnerability into practical strength. The memory of her words from the stream, "I have nothing to cover myself," was no longer a mark of weakness. Instead, it was a reminder of her growth, her courage, and the journey she had begun. Nayeli knew that the days ahead would bring new challenges, but she also knew that she was prepared, not because life had changed, but because she had changed within it. The next morning, Nayeli woke to a soft, golden light filtering through the small openings of her hut. The village was quiet, save for the distant crow of a rooster and the gentle murmur of the wind through the trees. She stretched, feeling the slight stiffness in her muscles from the previous day's work, yet a quiet satisfaction accompanied it. She had learned much under Ayana's guidance, and today she felt ready to apply those lessons on her own. The torn cloth of yesterday had been replaced with patches she had carefully woven, and she felt a sense of dignity returning to her movements. Nayeli began her day by checking the household tasks. Her younger siblings were still sleeping, so she took the opportunity to inspect the storage of food, water, and materials she had gathered. Each item held significance. Each represented her ability to survive and provide for her family. She carefully measured the remaining maize, checked the water jars, and examined the fibers she had collected from the surrounding land. Everything was organized methodically. Nayeli understood that preparation was a form of protection. The small victories of everyday life, keeping the family fed, the hut orderly, and herself properly clothed, were all steps toward building a life of security and dignity. After completing these tasks, Nayeli stepped outside, carrying a small basket. Her plan for the morning was to explore a part of the nearby hills where she had noticed resilient plants and vines that could be used for clothing repairs or even woven into stronger fabrics. The thought of venturing farther than usual brought a thrill, but also a careful awareness. She remembered Ayana's words about being vigilant and prepared. Nayeli walked steadily along the dirt paths, feeling the warmth of the sun on her skin and the soft earth beneath her feet. Each step was deliberate, her senses alert to every sound and movement in the forested area around her. As she reached the edge of the familiar grove, Nayeli began gathering plants with strong fibers. She tested each one for flexibility and strength, carefully cutting only what she needed, mindful not to damage the land. While collecting, she reflected on how far she had come. Just days ago, she had felt helpless and exposed at the stream, worried that she had nothing to protect herself with. Now, her hands worked confidently, weaving together threads and fibers into bundles that could be used later. Each motion was deliberate, yet carried a quiet creativity, as Nayeli discovered new ways to intertwine materials and make them stronger. After some time, Nayeli paused to rest, sitting on a smooth rock near a small, bubbling brook. She dipped her hands into the cool water and watched the sunlight dance across its surface. She thought of Ayana's lessons about resilience and adaptability. Life, like the stream, could be unpredictable, sometimes calm, sometimes rapid, but it was always moving forward. Nayeli realized that she could navigate its challenges just as water navigated rocks, finding new paths, bending where necessary, and continuing on its journey. With renewed energy, Nayeli returned to her task, weaving strips of plant fibers into a pattern she had discovered yesterday. Her hands moved nimbly, her fingers threading each piece with care. She imagined how these materials would strengthen her clothing and provide protection from the elements. In this process, she found not only practicality but also a sense of joy. The act of creating, of transforming natural resources into something useful and protective, filled her with pride. Nayeli began to see herself not just as a young woman surviving in difficult circumstances, but as a capable, resourceful individual who could shape her own life with skill and care. By midday, Nayeli had gathered a significant collection of fibers and woven them into long strips that could be stitched onto her clothing. She carried them carefully back toward the village, balancing the basket on her hip. The walk was long and required focus, as the uneven terrain could easily topple her load. Yet she did not falter. She felt a growing sense of independence and accomplishment. Each step, each careful movement, was a demonstration of the skills she had honed, skills that were slowly transforming her from a young woman who felt vulnerable into someone capable of meeting life's challenges with strength and confidence. As she neared the village, Nayeli noticed the familiar faces of neighbors and villagers going about their daily routines. Some paused briefly to greet her, impressed by the purposeful way she moved. She returned their greetings with a calm, composed smile, aware that her actions, even in small ways, communicated her growing strength and reliability. Nayeli realized that being resourceful was not only about what she could create with her own hands. It was also about how she carried herself, how she approached life's challenges with patience and awareness, and how she could inspire confidence in those around her through her. Quiet determination. Upon reaching her home, Nayeli immediately began working on incorporating the new fibers into her clothing. She unrolled the strips, laying them out carefully on a flat surface, and began stitching them into her garments. Each stitch was deliberate, precise, and mindful. She experimented with different techniques, finding ways to make the clothing stronger while keeping it flexible and comfortable. As she worked, her mind wandered to the days ahead. She imagined the cold mornings, the harsh winds, and the occasional unexpected rains. The clothing she was preparing would help shield her from these challenges, allowing her to continue her daily tasks with confidence. While she stitched, Nayeli's younger siblings gathered around, curious and quiet. They watched her hands move skillfully, their eyes wide with admiration. "Nayeli, how do you do that?" Tayan asked, tilting his head. Nayeli smiled warmly, showing him the basic technique with patience and care. "It takes practice and observation," she explained gently. "You must pay attention to the materials, learn how they bend and hold, and then guide them carefully. Everything can be used wisely if you take the time to learn." Her explanation was simple, but it carried a deeper lesson. Nayeli understood that the skills she was learning were not just for herself. They could be passed down, empowering her siblings to face their own challenges with confidence. As the afternoon sun dipped toward the horizon, Nayeli completed the first garment reinforced with the new fibers. She held it up, examining her work with pride. It was not perfect, but it was strong, practical, and a reflection of her creativity and determination. The clothing symbolized more than protection from the elements. It symbolized her growth, her resilience, and her ability to take control of her own life. Nayeli felt a quiet joy in this realization. She had transformed vulnerability into capability, fear into action, and uncertainty into preparation. Later, she stepped outside, wearing the newly reinforced garment, and felt the difference immediately. The fabric rested comfortably on her shoulders, covering her securely and giving her a sense of dignity she had not felt in days. The sun's warmth on her skin, the gentle breeze brushing past her, and the sense of readiness within her created a moment of quiet triumph. Nayeli understood that life's challenges would continue, but she now possessed tools, both practical and emotional, that allowed her to face them with confidence. As evening approached, Nayeli shared her accomplishments with her mother, who looked on with quiet pride. Marisol's eyes shone with understanding and gratitude. "You are becoming stronger every day," she said softly. not just in skill but in heart. The world is harsh, but you are learning how to meet it. Naeli nodded, feeling a deep sense of satisfaction. She realized that her efforts were not only helping herself, they were also supporting her family, strengthening the bond between them, and creating a sense of hope in a world that often felt uncertain. That night, as the family gathered around the small hearth, Naeli reflected on the day's experiences. She thought about the morning at the grove, the careful collection and weaving of fibers, and the way each task had reinforced her independence and resourcefulness. She remembered Ayana's words about vigilance, preparation, and creativity, and she realized that she had internalized those lessons. Naeli understood that strength was not only about facing the world boldly, it was about observing carefully, learning from experiences, and applying knowledge with patience and skill. Before resting, Naeli stepped outside one last time. The stars were beginning to appear in the darkening sky, twinkling like tiny reminders of possibility and hope. She took a deep breath, feeling the cool night air fill her lungs. The clothing she had reinforced today, the skills she had practiced, and the confidence she had gained were all part of a growing sense of empowerment. Naeli understood that life would continue to present challenges, but she also knew that she now possessed the ability to meet them with creativity, patience, and courage. In the quiet of the night, Naeli allowed herself a moment of reflection. She had transformed the vulnerability she had once felt at the stream into strength, not by hiding from it, but by facing it, learning from it, and acting with intention. The journey was far from over, but she felt ready for whatever lay ahead. Naeli knew that the path forward required continued effort, observation, and courage, but she no longer feared it. Instead, she embraced it, confident in her ability to navigate the world with skill, determination, and a quiet, enduring strength. The morning air was crisp and quiet as Naeli woke. She felt a calm energy within her, a quiet strength that had been building over the past days. Her hands, which had once trembled with worry and uncertainty, now moved with confidence and precision. Her clothing, carefully repaired and reinforced with fibers she had gathered herself, rested comfortably on her shoulders, providing both protection and dignity. The torn, fragile garments of the past no longer defined her. Naeli felt a sense of readiness, as if she could face whatever the day and the world might bring. As she stepped outside, the village was alive with the gentle hum of daily routines. Children ran barefoot through the dirt paths, their laughter echoing off the huts and hills. Women carried baskets of food and water, their movements efficient yet graceful. Men returned from tending distant fields or hunting, their faces lined with fatigue, but their eyes calm with quiet determination. Naeli observed all of this, realizing how the community had taught her lessons beyond her own experiences. Life, with all its hardships, also offered guidance through the observation of others, the way they worked, cared, and endured. Naeli's first task that morning was to check the supplies she had gathered and prepared over the past days. She inspected the jars of water, the stored maize, and the bundles of fibers. Each item was a reflection of her growing independence and resourcefulness. She realized that survival was not about grand gestures or dramatic heroism. It was about consistent, careful effort and the use of wisdom to prepare for what was to come. Naeli smiled softly as she looked over her preparations, feeling a sense of quiet pride. She was capable of caring for herself and her family in ways she had never imagined before. With her responsibilities tending to her household in order, Naeli decided to take a walk toward the stream where her journey had begun. She wanted to see it not with fear, but with understanding. As she approached the familiar place, she noticed the water sparkling in the morning sun, reflecting the sky in patterns that seemed almost magical. The reeds swayed gently in the breeze, and the birds sang from the trees above. Naeli felt a sense of calm wash over her. The stream, once a source of anxiety and vulnerability, now represented a moment of reflection and growth. She knelt by the water, dipping her hands into the cool, clear flow. Memories of her fear and worry from days ago surfaced, the moment when she had whispered, "I have nothing to cover myself." She smiled, realizing that those words no longer carried despair. They had become a reminder of the journey she had taken, the lessons she had learned, and the strength she had developed. Naeli understood that vulnerability was not a mark of weakness, it was an opportunity for growth. By facing her fears, asking for guidance, and applying what she had learned, she had transformed a moment of despair into a foundation of strength. As she sat by the stream, Naeli noticed Ayana approaching quietly. The elder had a gentle smile and her eyes reflected pride and understanding. "You have grown," Ayana said softly, her voice warm and steady, "not just in skill but in heart and mind. You have learned to face your fears, to use what is around you wisely, and to find strength in both independence and guidance." Naeli nodded, feeling the truth of these words resonate deeply. The journey had not been easy, but it had been transformative. Ayana continued, "Life will continue to present challenges, Naeli. But remember, you carry within yourself the tools to meet them: wisdom, courage, and patience. And never forget, it is not shameful to seek help when needed. Strength is found not only in facing the world alone, but also in knowing when to accept guidance and support." Naeli absorbed every word, understanding that her journey was far from over, yet she now possessed the inner strength to navigate what lay ahead. After a brief conversation, Naeli returned to the village, carrying a renewed sense of purpose. She passed by her siblings, who were already engaged in their morning activities. Her little sister looked up, her eyes wide with curiosity and admiration. "Naeli, can you show me how to weave the fibers like you do?" she asked softly. Naeli knelt beside her, showing her the technique patiently. She explained each step with care, emphasizing observation, patience, and attention to detail. Through teaching, Naeli realized another important lesson. Strength was not only about personal survival, it was also about passing knowledge to others, empowering them to face life's challenges confidently. Throughout the day, Naeli continued to apply her resourcefulness in small but meaningful ways. She repaired another garment for her younger brother, reinforcing it with the fibers she had learned to weave. She prepared food, organized their supplies, and ensured that her family was comfortable and safe. Each action, while seemingly ordinary, carried profound significance. Naeli had learned that life's greatest victories often lay in the quiet, consistent acts of care and preparation. Each stitch, each careful movement, each thoughtful decision was a demonstration of her growing strength and resilience. By mid-afternoon, Naeli decided to explore a nearby hill, a place she had avoided before out of fear of the unknown. She climbed steadily, her feet finding purchase on the rocky terrain, her hands brushing against the resilient plants she had learned to use. The climb was not easy, but Naeli felt invigorated. The challenge of the hill mirrored the challenges of life, sometimes steep, sometimes uncertain, but always surmountable with patience and effort. As she reached the top, she paused, taking in the view. The village stretched below her, small yet vibrant, surrounded by hills and streams. The landscape felt vast and full of possibilities. Naeli realized that her world, once intimidating and overwhelming, now seemed navigable and rich with opportunity. From the hilltop, Naeli reflected on her journey. She remembered the moments of fear at the stream, the helplessness she had felt with torn clothing, and the uncertainty that had weighed on her heart. Yet each step of her journey, from gathering fibers to learning from Ayana, from patching her clothing to teaching her siblings, had built her confidence and independence. Naeli understood that life would continue to challenge her, but she no longer feared it. She had learned to face each moment with patience, creativity, and courage. As the sun began to set, Casting warm golden hues across the village, Nayeli descended the hill and returned home. She found her family gathered near the hearth, the flickering firelight illuminating their faces. She set down her basket of fibers and materials, feeling a deep sense of accomplishment. Today had been another step in her journey of growth, and she felt a quiet joy in knowing that she was now capable of facing both practical and emotional challenges with confidence. Her mother watched her with a gentle smile. "You have changed, Nayeli," she said softly. "You are stronger, wiser, and more capable than you realize. The world may still be harsh, but you have found ways to meet it with courage and skill." Nayeli nodded, understanding the truth in her mother's words. She had transformed fear into action, vulnerability into strength, and uncertainty into preparation. The lessons of the past days had woven themselves into her character, creating a foundation that would serve her for years to come. As night fell, Nayeli took a moment to reflect quietly. She sat near the hearth, feeling the warmth of the fire and the steady rhythm of her family's breathing. Her thoughts wandered back to the stream, to the moment when she had whispered, "I have nothing to cover myself." Those words no longer carried despair. Instead, they served as a reminder of her journey, of the courage, patience, and resourcefulness she had cultivated. Nayeli realized that vulnerability had been a teacher, guiding her toward greater understanding, skill, and inner strength. In the quiet of the night, Nayeli stepped outside one last time. The stars twinkled above, their light reflected faintly in the stream nearby. The village was calm, the wind gentle, and the world seemed peaceful, even in its vastness and unpredictability. Nayeli took a deep breath, feeling a sense of completion and empowerment. She understood that life would continue to challenge her, but she was ready. She carried within herself the tools, knowledge, and confidence to meet each day with resilience, patience, and courage. As she returned to her sleeping siblings and the warmth of the hearth, Nayeli felt a profound sense of gratitude. She had learned that strength was not always loud or visible. It was quiet, persistent, and often found in small, deliberate actions. She had discovered that vulnerability could coexist with courage, and that asking for guidance was not a weakness, but a sign of wisdom. Nayeli knew that she was prepared to face life, not because the world had changed, but because she had changed within it. Finally, as she closed her eyes and let sleep take her, Nayeli felt a deep sense of peace. The journey that began with fear and uncertainty had transformed her into a young woman capable, resourceful, and strong. She had learned to protect herself, support her family, and face life's challenges with courage and creativity. The night settled around the village, quiet and comforting, and Nayeli drifted into sleep with the knowledge that she was ready for whatever tomorrow might bring.